Hello and welcome to our final Engage session where we are taking the tone of the state of the world and thinking about how we engage with God, our community, and particularly tonight we're thinking about how we engage in the mission that is before us. I'm excited to explore this with you, but I'm also excited to explore this with you. Sam, do you want to introduce yourself, tell us what you do, and maybe a little bit about who you are?
Yeah, my name is Sam Haywood and I'm actually the young adults pastor here at St. Paul's Castle Hill, and Pat and I are workmates, work friends, and it's amazing to be able to chat to you guys today a bit about what God is doing, or what we sense God is doing in the world in this current moment.
Yeah, thinking about this moment, we're all aware that Corona is spreading across every border. In Australia, we've seen some really weird reactions, like toilet paper being brought out of every single shelf for weeks at a time. We've seen some really intense reactions to what's happening, some violence. And I'm hearing people actually talk about humanity in that sense and saying, what's wrong with us? How do we act like this? There is fear, there is anxiety, there is worry. And at the same time, our commission, our job, our calling is to be about the mission of Christ. How are you feeling about what you feel the calling on your life is to take the gospel out to the people of the world? How are you feeling about that mission in this season?
Yeah, I have mixed emotions about what's going on right now, because in one sense, it's really difficult to see people that you love struggling.
Yeah.
And, you know, a lot of our friends have actually lost their jobs.
Yeah.
And have been trying to find work in a moment where there isn't really any work going. There's a lot of anxiety. There's a lot of people feeling completely out of control of their lives. And I think it's hard to see people feel scared and anxious and afraid and out of control. So on the one hand, I'm really grieving for a lot of people that I love, and you probably are as well.
Yeah.
To be honest, it hasn't personally affected me because I'm a single guy. My job is safe, and so I'm not afraid, I'm not anxious for me, but I am concerned for a lot of other people.
Definitely, yeah.
So it's mixed because there's that sense, but I'm also incredibly optimistic because God is doing something in all of this, because what's happening right now is everyone is feeling like they've had the rug pulled out from under their feet, and they realize that they don't have control over their lives. Yeah. And I've heard so many stories of friends of mine at work, not our work, but in their workplace, having people come to them and say, hey, tell me about your God. Can you pray for me? Can you lead me through this? Because everything's falling to pieces and I don't know what to do. And you seem so secure and you have hope. What's going on? So this is an opportunistic moment that God is on the move.
Yeah, I think what I find really interesting about that is society, it structures all the things it's built on. The language that I've heard you in some of your previous content use, the idols that we built and the systems that we've built that we lean in on. They're being destroyed.
Yeah.
And so society is in that place where they're going, well, what do we do? What does life look like now? But simultaneously, and I share your optimism in spite of this, simultaneously it's happening in the church as well.
Yeah.
So churches are being told you're not allowed to meet, shut your doors. The questions around, are we even able to do small groups anymore? And in Sydney, Australia, where we are, it's getting closer and closer to the answer being no. It's not there yet, but even if we do meet, there's a lot of parameters around that with social distancing. And so the church is, and I've actually really enjoyed this because I love change and I love innovation and I love rethinking things. The church is asking massive questions. Who are we? What are we meant to be doing? How do we survive if the center of what we do isn't all of our people in a building on a Sunday?
Yeah.
And while the world is going, what's happening, everything's shaking from under me, the church is mirroring that because the systems that we've used for years on years have been taken from us. And it's right that they're taken from us. We don't want to contribute to the spread of Corona. But I still have an optimism there because even though the church is going to look different and is already looking different, we're about 2 weeks into this and we're doing things like this, producing new content. I'm really optimistic And for me, that flows from a sense that our mission remains the exact same.
Yeah.
Our purpose, our calling, our mission, what drives us remains the exact same. I'm wondering, does that resonate with you? And if it does, how does that kind of play out for you?
Yeah, I think it really resonates with me, and part of the reason it resonates with me is because my job is to think about what God is doing. Yeah. And so I think it's actually important for us to kind of help people see what God is doing in this moment. And we exist in a world where the mission of God is to take the gospel to the ends of the earth. Yeah. Now, that is changing dramatically with the world being online. Yeah. So a lot of people are saying globalization is this idea of the world becoming smaller because of big business and big transport. I mean, Apple is a company that's global. I mean, so it's
Google's and everything.
We have iPhones, people in America have iPhones. It's that sense of like small world. Yeah. But what people are saying now is actually because of the internet, we actually have a global online community where cultural trends are actually connected to age groups and not countries.
Yeah, the research out of Barna that was released where they interviewed a whole bunch of people around the world, a whole bunch of millennials, and their data showed that a millennial in Australia has more things in common in the way they think and the things they believe and their values and ethics, more things in common with a millennial somewhere in Europe rather than someone of the generation older than them in their same suburb.
Yes.
And so there's that global equalization and there's that global sharing of ideals and ethics, and I guess it's also a global opportunity.
It's a global opportunity because what that means is if I figure out how to articulate the gospel to millennials in Sydney, it'll make sense to millennials in Europe and even Africa to a degree, and America. So basically, here's why this is good news, because the church leaders have been really feeling like God is about to move, particularly in 2020. Even before the coronavirus happened, everyone's been saying, God is stirring something, God is doing something. And now we're asking the question of, can that still happen? It feels like all of our plans for mission, all of our plans for church, everything that we're used to get the gospel to the people is no longer available to us. Is God still going to move? That's probably the question that a lot of you guys are asking is, does God stop moving when the church stops moving? And the answer is no.
Yeah, not at all. And I think one of the things that excites me about this as we ask the questions of who are we, what are we going to do, what does it look like, we've actually had to let go of this evangelism idea where it's bring your mate to us and we'll evangelize him from the platform. We've had to let go of that a little bit. We're still putting out content that we're hoping people will share and say, come do church with me in my living room, come share a meal with me and we'll pray over it. But now what we're looking for is people to do evangelism in their homes and in their workplaces if they're still running. And I think that's exciting for the mission that God has, because God's model was that multiplying model, everyone going out and sending more out and sending more out to reach into every corner of this world. In regards to the opportunity that's before us, the optimism that we share, what do you think it looks like now for just your everyday person who loves Jesus, works in the secular workforce, or maybe is studying at school or uni, dealing with the stress of Corona? Maybe they've lost their job, maybe they haven't, maybe there's redundancy in their family. What does it look like for your everyday person to jump on mission and look to bring people into the kingdom in this season? Yeah,
it's not as hard as people might think. And to be honest, I feel like this is something that we overthink quite easily. One of the things, the conversations that we need to have is what makes us different to the world. What sets us apart in this moment? What makes us look different? And the answer always has to be Jesus. I mean, people have to see Jesus on us. The question is, what does that look like?
Definitely.
And I feel like in this moment, it's peace. Peace is a differentiator right now, because there is no reason to have peace apart from your peace being anchored in the person of Jesus Christ. And I know that we spoke about in yesterday's segment about peace being a fruit of the Spirit. And what that what you guys were saying really makes a lot of sense, because if it's a fruit of the Spirit, it means it comes from the Spirit. It's not something that we muster up.
Yeah.
It's something that we ask for. And I think if we're making sure that we are actually settling ourselves, being still and resting and coming into the presence of God, we will find that our souls and our hearts are strangely warmed in His presence. We'll find that our anxieties are actually mitigated and diminished, and we'll have a sense of peace about us. And then we're going to carry that peace into places that are in turmoil, and it's going to be so weird, it's going to be so different.
Yeah.
And people are going to go, hey, why are you doing okay?
Yeah.
And we're going to say, because Jesus is my anchor. He's my hope. He's in control.
Definitely. And I think it's the idea of peace is, I think, so powerful for this situation, because there are so many loud voices. And I addressed this when I spoke to my youth ministry for the first time, not face to face. There are enough loud voices out there. There are enough people screaming about the politicians doing it right or wrong. There's enough people telling us that we're overreacting. There's enough people telling us that we're underreacting. There's enough people with their opinions on coronavirus and how it works. There's enough opinions out there about how long this will all last. There's enough yelling voices. There's enough people arguing online. And it's not a loud voice that's going to be heard at the moment.
Right.
It's when you can look, the world looks, when the world's feeling chaotic and they're feeling on top of an already anxiety heavy world, adding all of this pressure, all of this anxiety, when they're feeling that, and they can look to their neighbor and who they're going to start talking to more because we're at home, and they see a rest in them, a peace, a stillness, a contentment that flows out of a knowledge of salvation, that flows out of the fruit of the Spirit, that flows out of Jesus saying, if you're weary and burdened, come to me, and I'll give your soul rest. I think the quiet, restful soul is actually going to be the powerful leader in this time. And I talk about this a lot with HSC students, because there's a lot of panic, there's a lot of anxiety, there's a lot of worry, there's a lot of stress. And I say one of the ways to stand out is to not mirror the world, but to mirror God in that moment. And if our God is a God of peace and of hope and of joy and of rest, then if we mirror that to this world, if we mirror that during the HSC when people are chaotic, we stand out.
Yeah.
We have that times 1,000 now.
Yeah.
Everyone is in a place of chaos, and we have a chance to mirror the peace and love and gentleness of our God in a mission sort of way. Whereas in previous seasons we might have yelled about courage and boldness and just get out there and speak. I think we're still saying do all of those things and be courageous and be bold, but I think there's a gentleness that we need to carry in this season, which Christ carried in so much of his ministry as well.
And that's not something that you can fake.
No.
Like you can almost fake boldness, you can put on charisma, but you can't fake peace.
Yeah.
And I think there's going to be a tension for us of like, okay, I just got to be peaceful. I just have to slow down and I have to be non-anxious. But that doesn't work. You actually have to have peace. And the only way that happens is by looking at Jesus. Because we all know that we become what we behold. You know, if we're watching stuff that's anxious and has an anxious voice, then we're going to become anxious. But if we look at Jesus, we will realize how non-anxious he is. We're going to go, oh my goodness, Jesus isn't freaking out. Jesus isn't losing his mind. That settles my soul. So really the key for us to be the church and to be different is just look at Jesus. That's always the answer. Really when it comes to mission is you'll be like him if you spend time with him.
How do you bear fruit? Abide in me.
Abide in me.
And you will bear fruit. So thinking about that practically, if we're going to apply that and we're going to think about going forward in that, I think almost in a sense it's to go out into the world, into this mission opportunity before us, means to go in with God and to spend some quiet stillness. We want to say, all right, what's the 10-step plan to rest? I want to tick all those boxes off as soon as possible.
Step 1, rest.
Yeah, step 1, rest. Step 1, shut up. Step 2, sit down. Step 3, rest. It's this idea of we just need to quiet our souls and let God minister to us and then carry that out. And so my encouragement in that is this opportunity is a personal opportunity for devotion in God. It's an opportunity to spend time in the Word, to spend time in prayer, and to reflect on the attributes of God's character that apply so powerfully to this moment. And I think it's in doing that, we need to stay engaged in our local church, because even in this season, the local church is the way in which God wants to reach the world. And He's done that since day one. And so in any way that your church is reaching out and your church is gathering online or interacting in different ways, we need to stay engaged in that. Need to stay engaged with God personally, with the church actively, and then I think that sets us up well for evangelism.
Yeah, 100%. And I think one of the things that we need to realize is God is intentionally doing this. Like going into this, the church had a problem with idolizing busyness and success and hustle. And we were all really burning out. I mean, if you talk to any single person in ministry, say, how are you doing? I'm super busy and I'm on the edge of burnout. And then they'll take time off ministry and then they'll jump back in, and in 6 months they'll be burned out again. And what that shows us is we're actually worshiping the God of hard work to take the gospel to the ends of the earth. And it's almost as if God has taken that away from us and said, you need to figure out who you are without hard work and without being busy all the time. Because our biggest excuse for not pursuing God is that we don't have time to do it. And what I really see is God saying to us, you don't realize how much you need me, but you really need me. And I'm going to give you an opportunity to seek me out, find peace, find rest, have refreshment, have revitalization for your soul. And then we are going to be a light to the world again. And people are just going to come to Jesus as a natural outworking of that.
And I think I want to encourage you that crisis is painful and it hurts, and many of you will be in pain, as we said at the start, and hurting, but so are your neighbours, and so are your family, and so are your friends, and there are answers somewhere for the problems of this world, but none of them solve the problem of a weary and burdened soul. None of them solve the problem of eternity. None of them solve the problem of belonging, of pure joy, of peace. And what you have, if you have Christ, is you have the answer. You have a hope, and you have a reason to speak to that hope. And so I want to encourage you, don't fall back in this season, but step forward. If you've been timid in evangelism before, if you've been timid in bringing up Jesus before, this is a season to step out in boldness, because I think it's a season where there's going to be a lot more fruit, where there's going to be a lot more openness, a lot more vulnerability, and a lot more readiness to engage in religious concepts.
Because it's good news.
There's good news in the middle of pain, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we'll work towards wrapping up here. Can you just lay out for us, if you're ready to, some practical tips, thinking, I'm at home, I can't go to church, my small group's just moved to an online medium, I want to grow and I want to evangelize. What sort of practical tips are you throwing out there for people in that sense? Yeah,
in terms of grow, I would say stop and slow down and be still before God and get into His Word, open up your Bible, put on some worship music, open up a journal and just say, God, minister to me, speak to me. And that's going to be really hard, because when you're anxious, your mind's going 1,000 kilometers an hour trying to solve problems and think about things. It will be like a balm to your soul to slow down and stop. But it's going to be hard, but press into that and you'll find yourself refreshed at the end of it. And then in terms of evangelism, I would say the book of Acts says that God has actually orchestrated and ordained the times and places in which we live and the boundaries of our lands. And basically what that is saying is God has actually specifically sent you to the place that you're in because He loves the people that are around you. So if you're surrounded by friends and family and neighbors and work colleagues over Zoom, those are the people that God has already, before coronavirus, called you to minister to. But now they're going to be asking you the questions likely, or be open to the hope that you have. So just share the gospel in a normal way with the people that are already around you. And don't be afraid to do that over online mediums. There are so many churches putting out content. I want to put the idea before you of doing church in your living room with someone you wouldn't normally do church with. Invite someone over, and if they say no,
that's fine. The next person might say yes. Jump on it as an opportunity where they don't have to actually drive to a site, walk through a door with a bunch of big smiles staring at them as they walk into the building saying welcome, and sit in an uncomfortable chair and in an unfamiliar place. They get to just come into your house, into your living room, or even new to them, and engage with the gospel somewhere they're comfortable. So keep doing church, keep seeking rest, keep seeking God, and seek every opportunity you have to bring people in who don't know Jesus. This isn't a time where the mission stops. I think this is a time where the mission speeds up. And I think what we build in this period will actually not end when we're free to meet again, but will set a new tone and set a new foundation for us to continue into a new season of ministry.
Absolutely.
As we actually look to engage people where they are instead of where we meet. So open your doors, open your heart, open your life up to people, invite them in, be unashamed, and be ready to give an answer for your hope, that we might engage in mission in this unprecedented time, in this hard time. There is massive opportunities to see lives changed and eternities changed for the glory of God. Thanks for being with us, Sam. I'm really hopeful that these little sessions on engaging first and foremost with the church, with reading the Bible, with prayer, and now engaging with mission, I hope they have blessed you. I hope that you feel empowered, not by what we've said, but by God. And I hope that it can carry you forward into a season that we've never walked through before. But our God knows all things and is in control of all things, and He is walking with us. So we walk in strength, we walk in confidence, and we walk in unity. Thank you for your time. I'm super thankful that you have given us the opportunity to speak into your lives.
Bless you guys.